Welcome traders, Adam Harris here, and first thing I'm going to do is have a look at the economic calendar. So I'm recording this for Monday, the 23rd of December, and actually now that I think about it, now that I'm having a look at everything, possibly we shouldn't even have done one this week. Certainly what I'm going to do is take a break, and the next time I will do this, unless something significant happens over the next week, I will produce my next one for Monday, the 6th of January. Obviously, as you can see, even just looking at the news ahead this week, everybody's on holiday. So if you're newer traders who've never done this before, this is the time to set your tools down, pick up books, reskill. The market's liquidity volume is going to drop. All the heavy hitters are away on holiday, of course, either skiing or spending time with their families or on the beach. Everybody's away on holiday. The market is going to will go into a little bit of a coma. The most action we can expect, of course, is the anticipation of the next administration in the US, which we expect chaos and mayhem to ensue every single day between now and then. But really, for the most part, the markets are just expected to not do very much between now and then, and it's really not worth your while to engage with them very much. Take a break, take a breather, start to skill up, read that book about trading or investing that you've been meaning to do, and or go through some educational videos and upskill. That's really the best thing to do. So yes, certainly on Monday I'll be keeping an eye out for GDP for the UK, and maybe on the Thursday having a look at US jobless claims, but not really expecting too much from these. The market usually around this time of year just doesn't do very much. So having a look here at the VIX, and you can see we had a relatively big spike this week. Now, we've been talking recently, certainly last week I spoke about how the markets are all very much stretched to their limits and running kind of on steroids. And so we had a little bit of a correction this week, and that accounts for a bit of a spike in the VIX. Let's go through and have a look and see how the markets ultimately reacted from that. So one of the things that I'm just noting here on the dollar index is, yes, we've got some bearish divergence. We've got a double top, effectively a bearish engulfing candle, and often in situations like this my expectation would be that the market will attempt to go low. It doesn't really become significant until we break this low. So once we break below 105, call it 105.36, we would then likely see a correction way further into the range or back into the range full time. One of the things that I note here is we do have a stronger rejection here from the previous time that we broke out. We did break up to a new high, but we've also got a stronger kind of a wick, if you want to call it that. And on the monthly though, it looks as though we're successfully creeping out. So we're in the last kind of 10 days of the month. It does look as though it is managing so far on the monthly to escape the range. And that's why between now and the end of this monthly candle, that's really what I'm going to be looking at here, is if we do come back, we break this low, then I think we're likely to come back into this range. On the other hand, should we stay above it, should we come back into the top of the range, find support again, and then continue over the coming week or two, then of course we would have resulted in that dollar actually escaping range, and then we could look forward to, or at least anticipate, a stronger dollar in the coming weeks. Let's have a look at the major currencies here. So euro dollar, same thing here. We can see a very strong rebound off that previous low. You can see wicks forming there as well. This looks pretty good as well. This looks almost as though a double bottom. Neither of these candles are particularly bullish. It's really just the wicks. They would be green. This one would be particularly green if it was very bullish. So what are we looking for this week is, do we just continue down, or do we actually break above the high? And if we break above the high of this previous weekly candle, then it is this high over here of 1.063 that becomes relevant, because we go back into a range or we change trend. So be keeping an eye on that. Looking at cable as well, you can see cable has started to dip a little bit below that upward sloping trend line, and so again that stronger dollar starting to really pushing a lot of those majors back, just hinting at the ongoing strength of that US dollar. And then again, you look at it on the daily here. Again, I'll put in a level of support over here. We've got what could ultimately turn out to be a double bottom. A little bit too soon to call it ordinarily, I'd say absolutely, but the markets are not acting normally at the moment, and we might just see this continue down. We've got that bullish divergence. We've got a really strong bullish candle here. We've got wicks on the weekly. We've got a lot of reasons why the market might reverse at this point, but I'm still noting that we're managing to pierce through that. So what does that mean? It means in the bigger picture that dollar is still very strong and cable weak compared to that, which is interesting because cable's actually been stronger than the euro, relatively speaking. Then this is where we finished on dollar yen. We've managed to break out to the upside here, produced a high, so we've got a clear high low high here. That is also supported by that stronger US dollar. MACD is trending higher. We've got it above zero now, so we basically have a bull trend happening at this time. I would call it that monthly uptrend is still very much intact, and so at this point in time, yes, I see a bit of bearish divergence here, and yes, we could be in for a little bit of a wobble between now and the new year, but for the most part this appears to be looking relatively bullish. Okay, so I'm just going to remove that now that we have an actual sense of direction of where this is going. Let's see how the others did. Let's see how dollar Swissy did. Dollar Swissy, bit of a rejection here as well. still trending higher on the MACD, high, low, high, high. So there's an uptrend there. We've got that bearish divergence here again. So kind of when I look at that, I see the higher time frame appears to have a healthy trend, and the lower time frame has this bearish divergence. So what that normally, or often how that often pans out, is we just come back into it, consolidate, and continue on. In other words, the higher time frame trend remains intact, and the shorter term time frame is obviously running a little bit hot and tends to offload that by having a bit of a correction or consolidating. So that's potentially what is likely to happen here. Dollar CAD. Dollar CAD still running hot. You could see finally did a bit of a swing high here. The trend in many ways still looking intact here, still looking pretty much the same here. So yes, at this time, I would still expect this to have a correction and then attempt to continue. I'm just not seeing, although the markets are running unusually long at this time. In other words, they haven't had any much bigger corrections. There just aren't enough signs of weakness here. It's almost as though, as I said, they're on steroids, but not ready to quit just yet. Gold. Okay, so gold managed to break below these lows, broke down through this upward sloping trend line, still hasn't broken and closed above this high or below this low, and so technically it is still stuck within that range. And so yes, I still think that it's worthwhile for it to correct to the downside, but we're going to have to wait and see. It has not clarified its intentions yet. West Texas continues to work its way into, or crude oil at any rate, continues to work its way into that wedge. So either we break out to the upside and that wedge is then nullified, or at least that trade idea or that trade setup or pattern, which is a bearish breakout pattern, is, I guess, negated, or ultimately we'll have that breakout between now and June next year. The Dow. So here we finally had a bit of a decent sell-off here. The question really was, that I spoke about I think last week, was whether we were getting a weekly retracement. We still managed to stay above the previous lows, so the Dow is still in an uptrend, believe it or not. But that downtrend is definitely deceased, so to speak. It has ceased to be. We are now in a weekly correction, weekly retracement, or alternatively a monthly retracement, and that's what this is ultimately about. What I do find interesting is that the monthly here did a U-turn, which is, if you merge those two together, you get a very strong rejection. So we could see markets come down a little bit further here. That's what I'll be looking for this week. Do we break these lows, which then means it's a follow through of this monthly candle doing a deeper correction. Now, make no mistake, we need this, but it's part of the madness. And as I said, if the markets are still juiced up, then it's possible it's going to attempt to reverse from here. So I would say that a bullish candle that forms here or breaks the high of this in the coming week, because I'm not going to produce a video over the next week unless I feel it's necessary. I am at home relaxing, as I hope you are as well. But of course, it's a hobby, and so also I will find myself looking at the charts every now and again. So if I see something that's significant and worth mentioning, I might mention it. But that's what I'll be looking for as a possible thing. You could see how hard the market wants to keep going from where it is here. We potentially we've had red candles before that just were temporary pauses before the market continued. So for now, given the fact that most of the markets are still looking relatively happy, I'm going to see if we get a nice bullish candle this coming week, and see if the market on the weekly chart is going to attempt to continue higher. If it doesn't, and it just comes down and breaks these previous lows, then it switches to a monthly retracement. NASDAQ. Okay, NASDAQ here, you can see this bearish indecision sort of engulfing bar. We've got wicks at the top. We have no bearish divergence here. So it's almost as though this is the first stumble as opposed to the actual correction. This is the first stumble before a potential correction, which means we could continue going up for a while. Mini Russell back down within this. You can see that is a very strong rejection of this level here. Price back down into the moving averages. So will the market pick itself up, dust itself off, and keep going? We'll have to see. Bitcoin finally had a bit of this is a nice weekly engulfing candle. Didn't really close near the lows. It's not actually as bearish as one might think. And we can see that so far is forming a rejection candle off that 100,000 level. So makes sense when you think how extreme it is. Will we see a bit of a correction down here on the weekly, or are we going to see a deeper correction? We really are seeing, what we have seen this week finally is a little bit of capitulation, a little bit of kind of finally we'll take a bit of a breather. The question really is how much of a breather. Ethereum taking a slightly bigger hit, looks a lot more dramatic on the weekly chart here, and it is at its previous highs. So will we find it going back into the range? That we're going to have to wait and see. Oh, so just to kind of go back to that Bitcoin. So for me, initially, my expectation is to see it head back down towards a sort of ideally maximum the 80,000. Could come back in to test this previous level of resistance as support. That's a possibility. But I think that's more likely if we are going to get a bit of a monthly retracement. For now, I think it's better to anticipate a shallower retracement. Moving on, having a look at Apple. Apple just finishing super strong. Not looking that bad, not looking that overextended on the monthly. Certainly not, let's say, as crazy as some of the other charts, but it is certainly now in overextended territory, and a pullback here would also be considered healthy. But everything about it here, there's a little bit of bearish divergence over here. Otherwise, it looks relatively healthy. So I'd have to wait. I need to see some bearish reaction or bearish price action there to take it to the next one. So now we're looking at the Mag 7, guys, the Magnificent 7, to see how they're performing overall. You can see here Microsoft potentially forming a lower high. It's very early days. We still have an uptrend here on the weekly, and we could continue up and keep going. But just highlighting this, really, we'd be breaking these lows. We'd have to see price drop below these 50-period moving average to take it more seriously. Apple here starting a bit of a correction to the downside, just a retracement. Otherwise, that monthly looking good. Daily looks okay. For the most part, I would just expect possibly a slightly deeper retracement here in the coming week. But you know what? Overall, this is still very bullish. Alphabet, here, some bearish divergence, but actually when you look at it here, it looks really good. We've got a series of high lows, high highs. The monthly doesn't look so bad. We've got a bit of an indecision candle, a break of the low that would then hint at a retracement, just a simple retracement here. We are below the pivot, and so we could find ourselves closing a little bit lower. What I find interesting, again, is this fact here that we might have or be sitting at a major support resistance level. So that I'm going to be curious about and see what happens there. That's Google. We look at Meta as well. Definitely due for it. This is now showing clear lower highs, showing lots of exhaustion in here. Meta's taking strain. I don't think, based off what I see here, it's going to be able to keep going for a while until it has a correction, until it has a deeper correction. It's got, you know, quite a few buyers, a lot of steam there, but it is showing the most signs of weakness out of all of these. So I expect that to correct sooner rather than later. NVIDIA is all coming back down, breaking down through this upward sloping trend line. So this one also showing lower highs, definite bearish divergence there, lots of weakness there. So NVIDIA is taking strain. I do expect this to also potentially have a deeper correction. This forming a type of head and shoulders, very interesting. It's a head and shoulders depending on how you look at it. It's also potentially a double top. So both of those are bearish patterns, and this would be a rare sight indeed, like a spotted leopard or a snow leopard, seeing a double top within a head and shoulders. Usually that type of move I would expect price to go, let's call it from the from the top of the head down to the neckline. It just doesn't want to kind of work with me here. If we break through here, we would expect this to come back down towards these lows here. Let's see if it unfolds that way. And Tesla, the last one on our list, very nice bearish rejection, healthy. What I mean is, as a part of its overextension, bearish rejection candle. This in isolation would imply a correction back down towards 300. I think it's still on the cards, possibly 358, 360 area. It depends on where we actually close on these monthly candles. That would be the only reason I can think of offhand of why I might do a video next week, is if the monthly candles for December appear to be about to close incredibly bearishly, then I think it would be worthwhile having a look at. But that's, again, another thing, by the way, is that in between the weeks, we don't get 5-day weeks now. We're going to get 2 or 3 day weeks because there's so many holidays between now and then. The markets are not going to be open that much. All right, spreads will be high. Everything about it is just not right. So just take a breather. Trust me on this one. Take a little bit of a breather, and let's see if the markets ultimately do take a bit of a correction to the downside. Right now, as I said to you, is it a weekly correction or a monthly correction? We need more time to see this bake, but a lot of these, for example, Tesla here certainly looks like this. If we break the low here, we're going to see a move down to 360, possibly as far as 300 let's call it in the shorter term. But overall, in many cases, the bull market seems to be intact, just running very hot. Okay, I'm going to leave you with that. Ladies and gents, have an amazing Christmas and holidays. Merry Christmas to all of you. Enjoy the holidays, take a break. Either way, read some books, spend time with your family and loved ones. If you're in warmer climates, get out there and enjoy the sun and the beaches and barbecues and braais. I'm with you everywhere. So thank you very much, and speak to you soon.